G'day everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Cam, and I want you to picture a scene. It's 3 o'clock on a freezing Tuesday morning. The rain is coming down sideways, and a forklift operator on a grueling 12-hour night shift clips the edge of a racking system. The pallet tips, stock goes flying everywhere, and within 6 hours, some clipboard-wielding safety advisor who hasn't stepped foot on a site shed in a decade writes down the definitive cause. Operator error. Failed to maintain situational awareness. Case closed. Sign it off, put it in the filing cabinet, and let's all go have a flat white. It absolutely drives me up the wall. We have this massive, multi-billion-dollar safety industry, yet when things go wrong, we constantly fall back on the lazy, cheap, convenient narrative of blaming the poor bugger at the sharp end of the machine. It's what I call the convenience of the quick fix. Blaming the operator is brilliant if your only goal is speed of closure and ticking a compliance box to satisfy a regulator or an executive team that wants to protect their own political safety. But if your goal is actually preventing the next incident, well, then you've just failed miserably. There is a grand canyon of difference between tick-the-box compliance and genuine organizational capability. Compliance asks, do we have a signed piece of paper? Capability asks, does this system actually work when the pressure is flat out? See, those clipboard warriors love nothing more than a neat, tidy report with a single throat to choke. But human error isn't the cause of an incident. It's the starting point of an investigation. If your report ends with operator error, you haven't actually investigated anything. You've just stopped typing when the questions got too uncomfortable. To understand why we keep missing the mark, we have to demystify Professor James Reason's Swiss cheese model. Now, most people in safety can draw the slices of cheese on a whiteboard, but very few actually apply it properly. They focus entirely on the active failure, the sharp knife sliding through the final hole, which is usually the worker's hands. But what about the latent conditions? The latent conditions are the holes that were drilled into those slices years ago by management decisions, poor procurement, unrealistic schedules, and design flaws. They lie dormant in the system, waiting for the right sequence of events to align. Take contractor interfaces, for example. In almost every major site incident I've looked at, the lines of communication between the principal contractor and the subbies are a complete mess of mismatched procedures and commercial tension. Look at the classic solar farm case study. You have high-voltage cables laid completely out of plan because a concrete footing was built in the direct path of the route. Nobody shared the updated engineering drawings with the subcontractor. The subcontractor was given a verbal brief under massive schedule pressure with no on-site quality assurance. So what happens? The cables get terminated without testing. They get misidentified. And suddenly, you have a massive, expensive system failure. Now, a lazy investigator looks at that and says, the electrician made an error of judgment by not verifying the cable labels. Fair dinkum. What a cop-out. The reality is, that risk is quietly traded off every single day in the normal operation of any business. Executive teams sign off on change after change without admitting it's actually change, quietly letting schedule, cost, and efficiency override the very controls they brag about in their annual reports. The worker at the front line doesn't wake up wanting to do a bad job. They are simply trying to navigate the messy, contradictory reality that leadership has created for them. And this brings us to the absolute classic of shallow safety investigations, the retraining and reminders mirage. If I had $1 for every time I saw a corrective action that read, retrain worker on procedure XYZ, or issue safety alert reminding staff to be careful, I'd be retired on a beach in Queensland drinking cold beer right now. These are administrative band-aids. They are the weakest, most useless controls on the entire hierarchy, yet they make up about 80% of most corporate action plans because they are cheap, quick, and don't require management to change a single thing about how they run the business. It reminds me of the famous brown M&M's clause from the rock band Van Halen. Now, people thought they were just being arrogant divas, demanding a bowl of M&M's backstage with all the brown ones removed. But there was brilliant, systemic logic behind it. The band's stage production was incredibly heavy, complex, and dangerous. If the local promoters hadn't read the contract writer carefully enough to spot the M&M's clause, it was a highly visible, immediate indicator that they probably hadn't read the technical safety specifications for the stage rigging or the electrical loads either. It was a minor detail that revealed a massive structural system failure. We need that same level of thinking in our investigations. If a worker bypasses a safety control, don't just tell them to pull their socks up. Ask why the system made bypassing that control the only logical way to get the job done on time. We have to transition our recommendations away from fixing the player and start focusing entirely on the design of the game. If your solution to an incident is to tell a human to be more careful, your system is poorly designed. A resilient organization builds error-tolerant defenses so that when a human inevitably has a bad day, the system catches them rather than sending them to the hospital. But doing this properly requires something that is in very short supply in a lot of corporate boardrooms: courage. Organizations almost always settle for a convenient narrative over the actual messy truth. Why? Because the actual truth is politically sensitive. It challenges the established corporate myth. It points the finger directly at the resources allocated by the executive suite, or the toxic culture that prioritizes production over safety while plastering "safety first" slogans on the lunchroom walls. Every investigator, sooner or later, faces a defining moment. It's that moment when the evidence clearly leads to an uncomfortable conclusion, somewhere that will upset a senior leader or challenge a politically powerful manager. You have to make a choice. Do you write a report that keeps you politically safe? Or do you have the professional ethics and the guts to call it as it is? Because if we don't speak up, we are complicit in the next failure. We are letting down the very people on the tools who rely on us to make their workplaces actually safer, not just legally covered. Let's end with a bit of a hard Aussie reality check. Safety in 2026 isn't about what your job title says. It's not about whether you're a safety business partner, an advisor, or a head of department. It's about whether your day-to-day work actually reduces risk at the coalface. Stop arguing about acronyms. Stop hiding behind compliance paperwork, and start building systems that actually support the people doing the work. Thanks for joining me in the corner today. Think about your own blind spots. Ask those awkward questions, and I'll catch you on the next episode. G'day.